Once we got really good at growing wheat, people aggressively were shunning. No, we won't do wheat. We are opting out. We are gluten-free, gluten-free, gluten-free.
Yeah, that was a
And
wild time to try to romance people about this idea of a wheat farm. And they were like, "Well, is it gluten-free?" And we were like, "By definition, absolutely not."
It's the literal.
It is the thing. It's
focus.
It's the whole point.
The whole purpose is that.
Remember the first time that we ever planted wheat?
I do. I remember it so clearly.
So we planted wheat. It was true. I mean,
spring wheat.
We planted spring wheat. It was the first wheat crop we ever planted in the spring of 2009 when we had just gotten the farm. There are some great photos of you, like with it. We just
sowing seeds.
Just sowing seeds.
Just so casually sowing dreams.
Right. So, and that first planting was a disaster. It was a complete disaster.
A glorified failure on every account. That we wouldn't take defeat for an answer. That we ended up Felco clipping out a few.
A bouquet.
A few, like a trophy. Like, look, we can do it.
So
now we will just scale it.
The thing that happened is that we were so excited to plant our first wheat crop. Mm-hmm. It's our namesake. It's the thing in the summer that we were co-apprentices at Quail Hill that really got us excited about having our own farm, was thinking, oh my gosh, grains could really be this niche for us. And we were thinking about the East End Food Shed and how fortunate we are to have fruits and vegetables and, of course, seafood and beer and wine and honey and this extraordinary food culture out here on the East End, but no one was growing grains for culinary purposes.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit though, because why wheat? Like, we were not trained as wheat farmers. We are not in the vast plains of the middle of the country. Like, you know, what do you remember about like the light bulb moment of, that could be a thing for us? Besides filling a niche in the food shed, what else was going on at the time?
Well, I mean, truly, the daydream that we had about starting a pizza farm.
That's right, pizza farm. Pizza farm.
In our apprentice year, so when we were young and new to farming, you have, your hands are very busy, but you have an idle mind, and it was really those hours and hours and hours of weeding and hoeing and harvesting that just gave us the opportunity to just talk and talk and talk at length about what our future farm would be like. And so we were thinking something, there really is, you have the whole day to play with an idea. So we were a whole day, every day. So we were thinking about a fabric farm and a pizza farm, and it was really this pizza farm idea that really hooked us. And then we were thinking about, would we ever have dairy? Would we make cheese? We could obviously grow tomatoes for sauce. Wait a second, who even does grains? And that was really, for me, I think the thing that that drove it home of, wait a second, there might really be something here. So we're a little bit better at growing grains now than we used to be, although we were so scarred from that first year of growing spring wheat, so wheat that germinated at the same time as the weeds, and it was so weedy that we lost the crop. That we only grew winter wheat, which is much easier to grow because it outcompetes the weeds. You're sowing it in the fall when new weeds really aren't germinating, and then in the spring, the wheat is still there and has a head start on the weeds, and it's much easier to have a cleaner field. By cleaner, we mean weed-free, not wheat-free, weedful, weed-free field. But now that we're interested, we have our own bakery in the market, and now that we're interested in really diversifying our flours and really speaking to home bakers who really want bread flour, they really are looking for high protein flours. It kind of pushed us to get in this direction now that our field management is a little better. So we're harvesting the wheat with the combine. So we're going through and we're cutting the grain, and then it's being threshed, so knocking the seed out of the seed head. We call the seed of a grain, we call this a berry. So if it's wheat, it's a wheat berry. If it's a rye, it's a rye berry. And then high-powered fans and screens and sieves shaking it down, that's blowing out, separating the wheat from the chaff. And then what we're left with is mostly grain, but other things that are the same weight and shape and basic size of grain that the combine can't clean out, and that's what we're left kind of in the bag. So,
and you mentioned that there are other farms with combines around us, Pete and Balsam.
Yeah.
So So we are growing at a scale, but our neighbors have also adopted, our neighboring farms have also adopted this crop into their vegetable rotations, into their livestock production. And I think we can be proud of ourselves as farmers for taking a risk on a crop we didn't know how to do, that hadn't been grown here in, we think, at least, let's say, for rounding up, about a century.
For a culinary context.
For a culinary purpose. But we had a few successful early seasons where it was proven, we proved that it's a viable crop here to grow, and that our neighboring farmers have now adopted it into their crop rotation. The fun part about wheat, I think, for us to point to the story, because it's hard to start a farm, but it's really hard to start a farm during the Great Recession, which we did.
Yeah.
And then it's even harder to start a wheat farm during the Great Recession, when everyone became aware that they maybe had the opportunity to opt out of wheat and go gluten-free. And so once we got really good at growing wheat, people aggressively were shunning. No, we won't do wheat. We are opting out. We are gluten-free, gluten-free, gluten-free.
Yeah, that was
gluten-free.
a wild time to try to romance people about this idea of a wheat farm. And they were like, "Well, is it gluten-free?" And we were like, "By definition, absolutely not."
It's the literal.
It is the thing. It's
focus.
It's the whole point.
The whole
is
purpose
gluten.
is that.
Yeah.
So we rode that wave for a while.
Happily, also though, in the kind of 2009, 10, 11, there was this resurgence of the wheatberry salad, which is kind of, it was like, it was like kale chips and wheatberry salad. Those were like the things of that era.
And chefs were paying attention to the flavor of wheat. Dan Barber was leading the charge there. And
yes.
Wheat has a flavor.
Yeah, from Blue
There's
Hill.
terroir of wheat. We grow wheat by the ocean. That inherently imparts different nuances of flavor: nutmeg, salt, cinnamon. And what we're going to mill today, then you can smell it and taste it. And it's not bland. And it's whole wheat with the essence of all of the tasteful, flavorful components are still there. You can taste it.
So happily, I mean, the world went gluten-free, and that was unfortunate, but then wheatberry salads came back around, so that was fortunate. So for those first few years, we only had a mill exactly like this. We since burned through that mill. This is now a replacement for Milton.
Milton, yeah.
Our mill named Milton. That then what ended up happening, though, is that people started caring a lot about local grains, and something that we thought was maybe a miss and we were kind of shrugging off as not an exciting part of our story, or exciting for us but not exciting to customers, and that really shifted when people started thinking, it's like we kind of just had this idea about how exciting it would be to have grains as a part of a local food shed. And then everyone else also had that idea a few years later, happily. And one of the reasons that the industry really changed, because I think when we were starting to mess around with growing wheat, other farmers around the state of New York were also amping up their production. And one of the reasons that happened was because the New York City green markets started requiring that bakers that were selling at farmers markets in New York have a portion of the flours used in their baked goods be New York grown grains. And that regulation change and really pushed through by June Russell, who's an extraordinary wheat expert and still very actively works in the field, and now works at the Glenwood Center, pushed through this change in policy, which all of a sudden created a market for New York grain farmers to sell their grains, because everybody who was selling at the New York City markets all of a sudden needed to access New York grains. And so it was a market for it overnight. And so that was a really exciting wave to kind of start to be a part of, and people started talking more about flavor with grains. And then I think we finally felt like we were in the right place at the right time, after many years of feeling like, gosh, that was really weird. We decided to do that. We should have started a beef farm. It was like the era of Atkins. I mean, it was just like, it was completely different than what we thought it would be. So, but now it has really come full circle. And then Of course, there was kind of this sourdough boom that happened during COVID where everyone in America has sourdough starter. Actually, that reminds me, we should have opened with this, that one of the things that was so exciting to us about this concept of grains is a sourdough starter, a friend of ours who has, you say what he has.
Who's he? What are you talking about?
John? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So John, who we met as he was a farm member at Quail Hill when we were apprentices there, and he was in the field picking, and there were whispers of John's the baker, John's a baker, John's a passionate baker. We knew baker. But his passion for baking, which he baked loaves of bread every day.
Every day. Every morning. Started his day with baking a loaf of bread. Mm-hmm. It's extraordinary.
And that information trickled to us, maybe directly through him, but also through our farm mentor, Scott. Mm-hmm. And when we mentioned to Scott, we think we found an open access point in the ag market out here to grow grains. What do you think? He said, I think you should talk to John.
Yes. Yeah.
Because he immediately could envision a time and place in which farmers could grow grains, much of what you just described, to fill a baker's need. Mm-hmm. And so John had a foundation called the Baker Foundation, where he would give seed money to new projects. And so we asked John for $25,000 to seed Amber Waves so we could get going. At the time we were calling it the Amagansett Wheat Project because we hadn't fully formed the name of Amber Waves yet. But he was like, no brainer, let's do it, let's go. And we really stretched that $25,000 grant for 3 years.
We made that we banked that $25,000 and we just we used it as leverage to get we put some of it in a CD so that the bank would give us a loan so that we could buy our first greenhouse, which was $1,000. Again,
recession, no one was giving
money,
capital
but I just want to
farmers.
remind you that we had to take out a loan to put up a $1,000 greenhouse.
That's right.
So things have I bought a truck this morning. I didn't even ask or tell you about it. We bought a truck this morning.
Thank you for doing that.
It's used. It's but it's more than $1,000.
I'm so
but less than $7,000.
Like, we know how you.
There's nothing my dad loves to do more than shop for used trucks. So that's
we're getting one.
That's what we're getting.
Well,
So anyway, times have changed happily a lot that we don't need to finance a $1,000 greenhouse. But starting's hard. It's so hard. We got this good advice that first year from our friend Daniel Katz, who founded in his 20s, was also a founder and founded the Rainforest Alliance, and said to us when we were first starting, I think we gave him an early phase business plan, and he was like, this is a lot. Here's my advice. Only do 3 things and do them very well. And don't spread yourself too thin, just 3. You have to choose 3. And don't spend any money. Don't spend any money. Call in favors, borrow things, get things for free, but don't spend any money in your first couple of years. And so we harvested into, buckets that people gave us, and we each graduated from a Quail Hills apprenticeship program with a hoe because it said we could, even though I'm not sure anyone else ever took them up on that. But we anyway, I can't even remember why I got talking on this track. I was going to land the plane.
Well, because starting's hard, and it's always important to encourage people who are thinking about starting to do it, but it's going to be hard. But then the people who believe in your idea, who not only do it with words but take action and seed the idea with money. And
this was before GoFundMe, or those.
Yeah, it was. So it was John Fund Me, Baker Foundation Fund Us, and
there's no access to capital and everyone's gluten-free. Here's our idea.
And the point here is he was such a passionate baker that he had a sourdough starter. This was 2009. He had a sourdough starter from the 60s that he cultivated in Amagansett, and kept it going through friends and family over the years, and then eventually gave some of that to our friend Kernza, who also, that was her seed was to seed her dough for her baking business. And it is, I think it's certainly a personal story for us to share, because it's John's way of being that he wanted to share in the hopes that he could help somebody else succeed. And I think I am so grateful, and I know you are so grateful, that even in the beginning, someone can think that it's possible and then put their money where their belief is, and then it worked. So grateful to John and the Baker Foundation.
Yeah, today feels a lot like gratitude of people who helped us in the beginning and people who still help us. You know, I know how to run a combine because of Pete Ludlow, and we knew which equipment to buy because of Mary Howell Martins, and we got through our first few harvests because of Klaus Martins, and we were able to harvest yesterday because of Balsam Farms, and we were able to even start this farm in the first place because of the generosity of John DeQuavis, and it was because our mentor Scott Chaskey believed in us, and it was because our first 18 CSA families took a risk and joined us. It's because of all of these other things. So
the other thing to point out here, a baker with, you know, a lot of accolades, that was our front neighbor, Eli Zabar, also believed that we could do it in a way that he himself is a passionate baker, has an entire, very industrious business, some of which is baking bread and doing many other things, but a passionate baker himself. He was also inspired by and curious about what these two young women farmers doing in the back of my market growing wheat. This is so cool. And then just to kind of go on the personal connection here, his baker at the time we made friends with because she was a baker who had not ever seen wheat growing. So she had been working with flour for her whole career, but had not seen the agricultural side of it. And that was kind of an aha moment for her, and a really special moment for us of like, wow, on this 10-acre property in Amagansett, we're growing wheat, and there's Eli Zaber up front at the market, and your baker Carissa cares enough to come back to the farm and understand where the wheat's coming from. It was a really full circle moment.
I have such memories that year of us kind of smelling the smells coming out of that kitchen, smelling freshly baked bread, and us kind of wandering. I mean, for people who haven't been here before, our property that we now, you know, own and manage the entirety of, but in those days we were just leasing the farmland in the back, and Eli Zaber was operating the market in the front. And so there's this kind of back of the front or front of the back that's in between where our parking lot is. And I remember us just the smell wafting back from the kitchen, and us kind of making our way up there and being like, what are you doing in here? And Carissa kind of, you know, rolling out hundreds or thousands of baguettes, that Amagansett baguette shape, and kind of having her head out the window being like, well, what are you guys doing? And kind of meeting in the parking lot and exchanging, you know, what she had for what we had. So basically bread for tomatoes. And making some sandwiches together, and just how fun of a discovery that was, that she, you know, is a classically trained chef, and, you know, has everything going for her in a professional food context. And here we're fledgling farmers, and to have our skills and interest and kind of developing expertise overlap in that year was a really magical thing. I don't think in the time I realized how unusual such synergy would be, that something like that would just happen. It's one of those things that feels like the universe conspiring in your favor. That whole era of our lives. So I would love, so we should mill something.
Yeah, let's mill something.
Okay, so we have talked a little bit about the varieties that we're growing. We talked about winter wheat and spring wheat, and we talked about protein numbers. And so we're growing soft red wheat, hard red wheat, and then the hard red that we're growing is winter and spring. So within our bakery and within what we sell, our bakery loves to use a mix of soft red winter wheat and hard red winter wheat. They blend them 50-50. That's what's in our pie crust, the cookie, the muffins, you know, everything that our kitchen is putting out is a half blend. It's a little closer to pastry flour. It's a lower protein count. Our kitchen actually doesn't use any of the bread flour. We are just selling that. So the bread flour we're making with the spring wheat. And then we also have rye berries, for rye flour, which is beautiful, and no one buys it. And that's kind of like the joke.
Until now, because we're talking about
exactly,
it. And we're going to talk it into existence.
One of
if you haven't had your rye berry yet, you don't know what you're missing.
Do you remember that extraordinary bread that we had at Aquavit in the city?
Yes, I do.
Was it? Oh yeah, and they were like, it said Danish rye. We were asked our server, like, asked the pastry chef, is this Danko? Is like a Danish Danko? Is it that? No one knew at that time, but
no. But maybe we should have that chef on, and then we can
we can totally get to the bottom of it. So, so rye also bakes beautifully, and people who are passionate bakers love playing with rye as well, and we sell that too. And it's so beautiful in the field. It's like you can't believe it. It's almost this silvery color. Okay, so despite all of the different what we just talked about is like the hards, the reds, the protein, blah, blah, blah. Everything that we do is whole wheat flour.
Okay, what's whole wheat flour?
So, let's see, I'm gonna pull this out
here.
Thank you so much. Here. Okay, so when we're looking at a wheat berry, let's just move all.
Oh, they're not upside down. Okay. Otherwise, you'd be like. Okay, we'll stack
Claudine on here and do a magic trick for us. Okay, so when we are milling whole wheat flour, what does that mean? It means that we are milling the entire wheat berry. So the three parts of the wheat berry, which is the bran, so the shell, the germ, so the part of the wheat berry that would germinate if you let it, and the endosperm. And the endosperm is the white fluffy stuff that makes up white flour. And so in our process, we are milling the whole wheat berry. So that means whatever goes through the mill comes out the mill. It's the whole berry. So white flour has been stripped of the bran and the germ. So all that's left is the endosperm, the white fluffy stuff. But because the nutrition is in the bran and the germ, that's why if you have white flour at your house and you look at it, it'll say enriched, because the vitamins that were stripped out of the germ and the bran are then put back in so that you're still getting the nutrition value, but not via the whole grain. And so why this matters? Why people even started doing it is that the bran is obviously, we know what a bran is. We know what a bran muffin is. It's a little
fibrous.
It's a little fibrous.
Get your fiber.
It's a little heavy. And so there's a way to have whole wheat flour and actually to just sift it, and you can sift some of the bran out. Still considered whole wheat flour, but not quite as heavy. But the germ is stripped out of wheat flour because it's not as shelf stable. So anything that you want to say needs to be shelf stable for weeks, months, years, it cannot have the wheat germ in it because the natural oils in the wheat germ can go rancid. Although in the last almost 20 years of doing this, I have never had rancid flour, not even once. So what conditions have to exist for that to happen, I don't know. And
then for some people, it's a cosmetic thing. It's a textural thing.
Yes.
So for a variety of reasons, the white flour, the white all-purpose flour, has served bakers and pastry makers. It's a totally different product.
Right. So, and certainly, for people who truly have celiac, it's obviously a thing. This intolerance to wheat and to gluten. But I think for many people, eating foods that are made with whole grains that are freshly milled, I think are different on your system than heavily processed, stripped and re-enriched white flours. So I think there are some people who thought that they couldn't eat grains that actually, if they're eating like a whole wheat sourdough that's not commercial yeasts and it's not enriched and stripped white flour, that actually it is okay on their system. So we've really vilified the protein of gluten, and certainly for some people that's true, but I think for other people I would really encourage them to talk to a local bakery or make a whole wheat shift or think a little differently about grains. Certainly also people are thinking about grains as carbs,
Yes.
So and trying to cut carbs and manage your macros, etc. So we're not doing that today. That's like we have Megan, our nutritionist, on for that at a different one.
That's a different episode.
So everything that we use in our kitchen, everything that we do is whole grain. So we brought we brought our little mini mill, not Milton, but Milton's grandson. I don't know, we've had a couple since then. So inside, so also all of the grain that we're milling on our farm is stone ground. So there are 2 4-inch milling stones in here, a stationary stone and one that spins. We can set it from fine to grob, as we know, it's from fine to coarse.
Yes. Right, by rotating.
By rotating.
Yeah,
but we are
supposed to do that when it's
But
on.
we're pretty much, you know the rules. But we're pretty much always milling as finely as we possibly can, because we're looking for flour that's like really that's very powdery. If we were using this mill to mill something like cornmeal, we would have it be more coarse.
Yes.
You know, we would.
If you're wanting to make a tabbouleh,
exactly,
really
which is
cracked
cracked wheat is what tabbouleh is.
Right.
Fun fact.
Fun fact. So that's a different coarseness in milling.
And so another thing we're pretty unusual in that we're growing grains, cleaning grains, drying grains, storing grains, milling grains, baking grains, and serving grains, completely vertically integrated process on a single farm. That's very unusual. So huge commodity growers they're growers. So they're growing grains, selling them to a grain elevator, and then that's it. And then a grain elevator, it is a mill, or they're amalgamating grains from all over the place. They're regional distributors of grains that are then selling to General Mill or King Arthur, or however that works. And then there are bakeries who are buying in flour. And so there's a reason that all of these different steps are separated on the commercial level, because they're all complicated and we just do all of them here, which is one of the reasons that our scale is small. The way for us to be able to grow and process 10 to 12,000 pounds of grain, we're able to do that, on our scale. Okay, so I think the switch is on your side.
Let's get her going. Okay, so in go the wheat berries into the top loader.
Fun fact, all these bowls were my grandmother's bowls. Now they're my bowls, but I love old things. And I was
love them.
So excited to bring my bowls.
I
love
them.
Pyrex.
Okay, so let's smell it.
Okay. The smell also will bring you back, I'm sure.
I mean, immediately you're like, warm biscuits. That's the first thing I thought of, warm biscuits. It already tastes like, it is slightly warm because of the stones that have ground it, but it smells so flavorful. It smells buttery.
Yeah.
It smells so explosively delicious.
One of the reasons that we have a stone mill instead of a hammer mill or a roller mill is because stone mills tend to keep the temperature of the grain a little bit cooler, which helps preserve the quality, particularly of the wheat germ that has the oils in it. And so it's a slow process. So this is now our mill that we use for school groups and classes. It's not the mill that we have that's our more commercial mill. Although even that mill is doing like 60 pounds an hour. So
yeah,
it's not huge.
Yeah, and so for those of us who can't see it, this is a tabletop, what we use for demonstration and education.
But it's perfect
like
for home kitchen.
It's like the size of a Vitamix. It's a tabletop appliance.
Yes.
Like the size of a blender
Yes.
that you could have at home. That if you were a baker at home and you wanted to start purchasing wheat berries, you can purchase this tabletop mill and mill your own whole wheat flour.
The brand is
for your
Como. The one that we
baking.
have is a Fitibus Classic. This is
not sponsored.
Not sponsored.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's the best. But I do think this is the best one out there.
It
That's
is.
why we have burned through a few over the years, but these mini mills have milled thousands and thousands of pounds of grains for us. So we are grateful for that.
So let's step back for a minute, because we were setting a new precedent by growing wheat, and we would give tours on our public-facing farm so that we could show people what a wheat field looks like. Mm-hmm. But then, as a nonprofit educational farm, our mission is to teach people about food, but then have them really live it and experience it. So to your point of being a vertically integrated farm, but specifically vertically integrated in this crop, where we're growing it, harvesting it, milling it, baking it, tasting it. This is a really important tool for us to do education, both with children and adults. And we have had some wildly fun experiences with folks who come to the farm over the years who are making things with whole wheat flour that we had just harvested and milled. So some of the things that come to mind, and we can like go through them, but for a long time we had DIY pizza pie.
Yeah, my phone just did the thing of, you shouldn't really look at when your phone says remember when and then tries to make you look at pictures, but I did.
Of your ex-boyfriends.
I was like,
stuff?
I don't know, like whatever you were doing at a time.
I just wanted to look at something that's not
yeah,
that.
But yesterday it was like memories, and I was like, fine, and I clicked into it, and it was DIY pizza pie.
Amazing.
And it's a picture of you. And Beatrice your daughter Beatrice is in the photo, and it's capturing this era from Laura Rose is leading it. I think that it must have been in the year of 2017 or 2018. Anyway, it was a fun.
Yeah. So in that case, we bring people to the farm, and everybody is allotted, whole wheat, and then they're making dough, and then they're stretching dough, and then they're going into the field and picking their tomatoes and their basil and then topping it with locally made mozzarella cheese, and then we're firing it in our wood-fired oven.
Which we forgot to mention that after years of this kind of back burner idea of let's have a pizza farm,
right.
we bought a pizza oven on wheels.
Yes. It's a mobile wood-fired pizza oven from this amazing company called Maine Wood Heat. And that family, they literally opened their front door to us. Like we went upstate to Maine for a grain conference, and then they let us.
And they
stay
were
at their
our
home.
host family for a night. They were our hosts, yeah.
And then we learned that they made these wood-fired ovens, and then we eventually pulled the money together to buy one.
Yeah, we've totally fell in love with these ovens. So that these French bricks, these from the Le Pignol company, that
gorgeous. Lined with wool and then surrounded by copper, and we've cooked many things in it in addition to pizza, but we think of it as a pizza oven.
Yes, that's the thing. Yes, you can do, it's an oven, you can do anything. It's a wood-fired oven, you can cook anything in it. I grew up with with such a pizza culture in my household. My parents met in the 80s working at a pizza and wings restaurant in Buffalo, Bob and John's. And so Pizza Friday was this really special thing when I was a kid growing up, that we would either buy dough or make dough, and my dad, working as a pizza chef for years, can throw a pizza dough so high in the air. And when you're 6, there's like maybe not a cooler thing that your dad could do than to throw a really high pizza dough. And we'd like come home from school, it'd be Pizza Friday, I'd be so excited about it, and in the summertime, we like jump in the pool and then come inside and watch my dad throw this pizza dough and be able to decorate pizzas. And it was just the highlight of everything. It's one of my most like clear and anchored food memories. It's just this sheer joy around pizza. And now, as an adult, and I can now throw a dough in the air as well. But when we run the pizza oven here, I never tire of it. It's, every spring we have a kind of a welcome back to the farm event for our CSA members, where it's a potluck and then we make pizza. People lean in a little bit hard on the pizza. This year we made 90 pizzas for our CSA. It's so fun. You just like lose yourself to the process. You're working with a live fire inside the oven, and so you're adding logs and kind of maintaining temperature, and there are cooler parts of the oven and warmer parts of the oven, so you're just moving these. It's like meditative. And usually kids get involved with stretching dough and decorating the pizzas. It's one of my absolute favorite things that we do at the farm. I love
really
it so
lands
much.
with children too. The children from the Bridgehampton Center were here today in our children's outdoor classroom, and they had their own DIY pizza pie day where they're stretching
in
the
the
dough
mini oven.
In the mini ovens, and they were stretching dough, and then they went to harvest the basil and cherry tomatoes and walked it back, decorated their pies, and they were having a pizza party together. And 90% of the kids finished their pizzas, but a few that didn't were bringing their pizzas home. And I looked at the slices, and they were perfection. They were gorgeous. I was like, "How was it?" They're like, "Delicious."
It changes it.
Like, can you go to a farm and then have this pizza experience? They're never going to forget it.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Well, I'm so glad you shared that story about your family, because it's awesome. In much contrast to my family, where truly I was in the suburbs of Los Angeles in the 80s. It was Domino's. It was Domino's.
That's what you think
delivery.
of as pizza.
That is.
Yeah.
And so it was not until I moved to New York.
California has other food things going for it.
Pizza is not yet one of them. And if we start in Amber Waves West and we bring pizza to California, I'll be so proud about it. But it was like the pizza war of the 80s. It was like Domino's or Pizza Hut, or we weren't a Pizza Hut family. But that was my
intro to pizza.
And for a long time, because then I moved to Texas, where they don't know what pizza is in San Antonio. It was a foreign food, not readily available.
I will say though, off the topic of wheat though, and thinking about the food memory or the food ethos that you bring to our partnership, that I'm still kind of is remarkable to me, is how you're always looking up for fruit trees, kind of wherever we go, and you're just in a way that it would never occur to me. I mean, I grew up with an apple tree in my backyard, and kind of that. I think of fruit as like, okay, you go to an orchard and there are apple orchards, there are places where people grow pears, like there are places where people grow fruit, but they are not around me. But you are always looking up and looking for fruit, because it's how you came to be.
It was how I was trained in Southern California, where I just wrote about this recently. I walked around the block with my grandfather. I remember taking these walks with my grandpa Eddie, and they were foraging walks. We didn't call them that, but I would look up and be like, let's try that, and it would be a loquat. And what's that? And it was a kumquat. And there is a lemon, and there's a lime, and there's an avocado tree, and so the abundance of citrus and fruit trees around you in Southern California, just in your everyday existence, is plentiful. And so I do that. I still do that all the time.
So you have that going for you, which is nice.
Yeah. Okay. Pizza's way more fun.
Yeah, pizza's not grown on
it's
trees.
Different.
Yeah,
not yet. Okay. So the other funny story I was thinking about as it relates to wheat, because people say Amber Waves, or they know Amber Waves, but they don't really maybe make the connection of the namesake, the origin, the inspiration. So can you talk a little bit about that? And then I'm going to ask you about a very fun customer incident we had at the Montauk Farmers Market.
Oh, that was my favorite. Okay, so Amber Waves is, it's hard to name a farm.
Oh, beautiful.
It's hard to name a farm, for starters. And we wanted something when we were naming the farm that was feminine and alluded to the ocean, and that just really felt like us. And we had these lists of keywords, and I will tell you that it kind of looked like we were trying to name a cocktail. It was like sea breeze or ocean mist, or like something that just didn't sound like it was it sounded like it was cranberry juice, or like a
mixer.
Or mixer. Yeah, it was not of we weren't getting there. And then when this idea came around of Amber Waves, it is the second you said it to me, I was like, oh, that's it. We're done shopping. We have it. And so I don't know that they teach the song America the Beautiful as much to children now as they did in the 80s and 90s when we were growing up. But we had certainly to sing it. And you hear it at ball games, and Aretha does a banger of it.
Wow, she really nailed it.
Of America the Beautiful, which was originally a poem written by a woman whose name I can't remember.
Sally. Fact check.
Ugh.
I know.
I think on a cross-country train ride.
Yes, another woman. Amazing.
Yes.
We will honor her properly the next time we're on with her name.
They
are her words.
They are her words. But so Amber Waves is an ode to America, to amber waves of grain. Makes us think of the sea. It's obviously feminine. It's the perfect name for us. People ask us a lot, where does that name come from? And then when you tell them about the song, they think, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't think of that.
I can't believe I didn't think of that. I thought your name was Amber.
Thought your name was Amber. Just forever. You know, the fun thing about it though is that everybody who works here just answers to Amber.
That's right. It's the collective Amber.
It's just,
she has become her own living life force
here
at the farm.
Which is, that's exactly, we wanted to have Amber as a presence bigger than the two of us. I used to get a little bit annoyed because people often, my name is Amanda, and people often, when you say, I'm Amanda from Amber Waves and Amagansett, it's a lot of Amma. And amber is the sparkiest of all the words. It's the sharpest. There's an R in it. It's the one that they latch to. And so, I get called Amber all the time because of that, and it doesn't even bother me a little bit. But it used to a little bit, and the day that I made it to never bother me again, we were they'll tell you it's another Montauk Farmers Market story that's a little bit less fun. This couple came and they were like, is Amber here? And it was a particularly busy and hot day. And I was like, you know what, there is no Amber, like it's the name of our farm, and no, I'm not Amber and there isn't one. And this woman said to me, oh, okay. Gosh, that's too bad, because we just took a cruise. I was like, where's this story going? To Alaska, and I thought, oh no. And we went on a tour, and I thought, oh God. With a raft guide, named Steve, who said that his sister was a farmer in Long Island, and that she had a farm named Amber Waves. And so we came here to find you, to meet you, because we met Steve on our Alaska trip, and it was such a wonderful experience that we just thought we should meet his sister too. And I was standing there at the green of the Montauk Farmers Market wanting to shrivel into a wormhole, and I recovered, and we had a very nice chat. And I thought, boy, I will never be annoyed ever again if somebody makes this error. I'm just going to always take it as a compliment, because these people drove from like
Steve,
Garden City to come see us.
Our number one Amber ambassador.
Just giving raft tours
in Alaska, and then encouraging people to come see us.
He is the world's greatest raft guide. He works at Wet Planet. It's in Washington State. Go on a tour. Okay, so that's one thing that happened at the farmers market. The other thing that happened at the farmers market. So some people know about Amber Waves, America the Beautiful. Some people know about Amber Waves because of a little film called Boogie Nights.
Right.
Starring Julianne Moore and my favorite, Mark Wahlberg. And so in that film, Julianne Moore plays a character named Amber Waves, and there is an adult film that is mentioned in the film called Inside Amber Waves, and it's a great movie. It's a great movie. I mean, and there was a time where, and Julianne Moore spends some time out here on the East End, and was shopping with us at the Montauk Farmers Market. She probably doesn't remember that this happened, but it was pretty formative for us. And someone yelled across the farmers market, "Yo, Amber Waves!" And she turned around, and we turned, but the person was talking to us, not to her. And she was not upset. She was not like trying to have someone be like, "Hey, Amber Waves." But anyway, that was such a funny moment.
And then you promptly had the most amazing conversation about how everyone enjoys sweater weather.
Yeah.
So
we were moving into the fall.
Sweater
weather. Yeah.
Just real.
Yeah, we love her.
So I have a fun story for you. I don't know if you know this, maybe you do, but a couple of summers ago, I met Florence Fabricant, who works at the New York Times, and loves food, cares about food, has written so many amazing cookbooks, and is just like into all things food. And she was in our market and stopped me and was like, "Is this the flour from your farm?" And I said, "It is." And she said, "Can I use it for pizza dough?" I said, "Yeah, definitely." And she said, "I was just at Roberta's, was popped up in Montauk last year." And she said, "I was just at a workshop, giving a workshop there and touting your farm and your flour and why it's special and why it tastes amazing. So let's celebrate flour for a moment. We're going to do some milling. And I think that the reason that felt so exciting to me is not every person but she does have a lot of experience with nuances of flavor and
Yes.
flour. And so when we're milling our grains, we're gonna do hard red, and we're gonna do soft red, and we're gonna do rye here and mill it into whole wheat flours. It is a different culinary experience, and that's what Florence was hooking into and highlighting. And the other thing she said was fiber.
Yeah.
Let's just lean hard into fiber, and like that's going to solve a lot of people's dietary problems. Okay, so on that note, let's do some milling. What do you have over there?
So we're gonna do some. Okay, so I'm surrounded right now by the four things the four types of grain that we grow. So we have culinary rye, and the reason that we're saying culinary rye is because rye is typically for farmers thought of as a cover crop seed. So something we plant after our main season crop goes in the ground, then you plant a rye crop, which is very hardy and overwinters, and then you till it in the spring. So there are other varieties of rye that are less for biomass and cover cropping, although a winter grain functions as a protective cover crop, but that's a culinary rye. So the culinary rye variety that we grow is called Danko. And it's the same as this.
Same.
It's right
yeah,
here.
I had some notes.
Okay, so here, so it's pretty. Once you've been looking at these, you can absolutely. It becomes easier to tell who's who. Okay, and so then we have hard red, which is the same as this. So hard red is the hard red winter. So this is going wheat, yes, hard red winter wheat. So this is what our kitchen is blending the hard red winter with the little bit of grass in this one because we had a little bit of a spill before we turned on the. Okay, so so our kitchen is preferring to do a half hard red, half soft red blend for everything that they are making with grains. So cookies, scones that aren't gluten-free, because we of course also have to have those, the pie crust, muffins. They're using a 50-50 hard red, soft red
ratio.
And
yes,
and then they're also, it's not, so everything that's coming out of our kitchen is not 100% whole wheat. It's a portion whole wheat, and then the portion that's whole wheat, we have a few things that are 100% whole wheat, the pie crust and the cookie, but other things, there's a blend. Okay, so let's put all of my grandmother's bowls really to use. So the wheat that looks the most different, that's just so easy to tell by eye, is the hard red spring.
Oh yeah, because
it's a little harder to thresh, so sometimes there's a little of these.
The size of the wheat berry is a bit smaller,
almost shinier, and like there's like an iridescence color or something or associated with it. So what I was harvesting yesterday was the hard red spring wheat. So this one, and so the hard red spring wheat is going to be for bread flour. So that's what
and
we're doing.
And a little
for bread
shorthand
flour.
trick when I was very early on, and I still use it today. Red rhymes with bread.
Yeah, red is for bread.
Helps me remember that wheat varietal is typically for bread baking.
I always think, although this is such a like nuanced insider joke, but that there should be a joke about like this is a red white. This is because we're not growing white anymore. Never mind. Never mind, retract.
We can talk about that in a different of why we're not.
So we used to grow soft white winter wheat, which is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful crop, and we love it. And it is really prone to sprouting in the field. So wheat is one of the crops, just like corn. If you think of a corn kernel is also a corn seed. A wheat berry is also a wheat seed. So if you're a plant, the thing that you're trying to do is propagate, germinate,
sprout, baby, sprout
more plants.
Makes so much sense. Yes.
The time of harvest is can be particularly stressful because we are trying to time it such that the crop is dry enough in the field, but not so mature that it's having a tendency to sprout still right on the head. And so a few years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we had a couple consecutive years where we had a soft white winter wheat crop in the ground. And we had a rainy late spring, early summer, and it all sprouted in the field. And we had to harvest it and compost it.
Right.
It was heartbreaking. And so we moved away from soft white winter and moved then into soft red winter, which is much less prone to field sprouting, because that was just such a bummer. So in those old days, I thought, oh, it's a red-white blend when you're blending the red and the white together, but that joke doesn't work anymore. So
there's some exciting things happening. We grow annual wheat, and that is typically commercially what farmers are doing. But there have been advances in wheat in such that I'm thinking of Wes Jackson at the Land Institute, who has been working our entire farming career on developing a perennial wheat, which is good for soil health and would come back every year. And I think that they're doing great things with that, and they've also linked up with Patagonia in some ways too, to use those grains.
Oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you, when I was recently in, I'm so glad that you mentioned this, because when the last time I was in California, I had a Kernza beer from Patagonia. And I couldn't believe that was a thing. And I completely forgot to tell you right now.
And Kernza is the name of the varietal that Wes has been developing for
I saw it and it was
20-something years.
Of course in San Francisco they have the Kernza.
Well, it's made it commercially now, which is a really big deal.
And I was excuse me, can you just bring that a little closer so I can take a look? I completely forgot to tell you.
Did you taste it?
Yeah. Good.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, so anyway, I could just, Anyway,
okay,
so now we know.
That's really exciting, because I know they've been trying to bring that so that it could be a viable crop for farmers to grow.
Yeah.
And maybe we're there now.
Especially
if there's a beer market.
Right, exactly. I mean, thinking of the Fosters who've been farming here for hundreds of years, who've been grain, corn, and potato farmers, and now, now their farm has evolved to have an on-farm distillery, and they make extraordinary products. And what a great value add to have grains, something that's really thought of as very cheap, put in a shelf-stable, beautifully packaged, really well-balanced product. They do such a nice job. As we just are kind of playing around with these grains, I'm just kind of reminded of a fun fact. So this is a wheat stem, which is it's straw because it's a straw.
Because it's actually a straw.
That's if you think a drink straw. So people get straw and hay confused
all the time. You had to really school me in this, because I did not grow up with horses and livestock. But let's talk about the difference between
straw
hay and straw.
So this is straw,
which is the stem.
The stem of a grain.
Of a grain, you're right.
Hay is essentially a grass crop. So timothy or alfalfa or clover that you're harvesting as a grass crop that's food for animals. This is not.
That's not nutritious food for animals.
This is not food for
animals. That is
a
stem of a grain.
It's a stem. Mm-hmm. And so we do use straw on this farm as an organic form of mulch, so as weed suppression. In our wheat fields that we're harvesting right now, we're harvesting the wheat. Some farmers will then go back through and bale the straw. We are leaving the straw behind, tilling it in, and just letting it contribute to our soil organic matter, just leaving it behind. Or actually, in the case of the crop yesterday, I said, so Jess and I were in the combine on Town Lane yesterday. I think that the spring grain crop that came out of Town Lane yesterday, we had a really nice winter wheat crop on Town Lane last year. So, it's such a beautiful stand, not a single weed in it, and we undersow clover in the spring to help the grain outcompete the weeds, so to suppress the weeds, because clover has this great foliar cover that that shades out the weeds so that they can't grow, so they're starved of sunlight. But then the real thing that we're excited about with clover is that after we cut the grain crop, if we get a good stand of clover, meaning it's evenly seeded across the field, we are harvesting the grain and then going through with it with a flail mower to essentially chop up the straw into smaller bits, and then the clover takes off. And then that field can just rest for the rest of the summer, all winter, and then we'll use that field again in the spring. But meanwhile, clover, a legume, is that legume family is taking nitrogen from the air and fixing it in the soil. And nitrogen is our most important nutrient that we need as farmers. And it's also creating these beautiful drainage channels and opening up the soil pores. And so, the 5 or 6 foot deep root system establishes as we're through the clover's growing cycle. So I just wanted to tell you that in our townlane field, we have a perfect stand of clover. I'm so excited to just leave that field there for the rest of the day. And the straw wheat, the spring wheat's a pretty short crop. And I mean that in terms of height.
Right.
It's like just over your knee. So there was really, the straw was already in pretty small pieces. So we'll mow it once and then the clover will just take off. And my gosh, it's just beautiful to look at. Okay.
That's a victory to be, that's really a testament to professional farming,
getting
to
a
have
little,
an
to
under
getting
sun
better at
cover
it.
crop.
Okay,
really
so
come to life.
we milled already some, what do we have on the table first? We had hard red on the table first, so that's what we've milled. So I think the thing that's the most different, the hard and the soft red are gonna mill kind of similarly, but I would love to let's mill some hard red.
Okay, and then I'm gonna
pardon me, some hard red spring.
Okay, and then I'm gonna add a little of this to our remaining bowl.
Okay, so the first thing that we milled was hard red winter wheat. The second thing that we milled is the hard red spring wheat. And when we were talking about the difference in color of the hard red winter versus hard red spring, we were talking about this kind of like iridescence of the spring wheat. And when you're looking at it, to me, well, now you shook it a little bit, but the
I know, I moved the bran around,
but it's a different color because that bran is red.
It is. It has a reddish
like
hue.
Kind of the color of your shirt a little bit.
And it's milling a bit differently. Like I think we would see it if we had a sifter here.
Well, it's literally louder.
Yeah, right. It's a much yeah.
It might be hard to tell that but when you're sitting next to it, that grain is much louder than the red winter. You flour on your nose again. Okay, so then I think we should mill some rye flour to just see what that is looking like. Okay, so what we have milled so far is the hard red winter, which is here, and then we milled the hard red spring. So this is our bread flour, and we were noting that difference in color, this like kind of deep red iridescence that exists in the spring wheat that you can really see just in the little flakes of bran that are in this flour. And now, sorry, soft red, you're just kind of off to the side because we want to play with the rye.
Yeah, let's see how it's different. It mills a bit differently. The seed is an entirely different shape. It's long and slender and a bit silvery. So let's see what it looks
different
like.
color. Blue to me, and when you look at this grain, like there's almost a blue hue, and actually when you see it in the field, that silvery, it has this like silvery, not blue is too strong of a word, but
cool undertones.
Yeah,
these are much warmer.
Yes. Okay, so then here's the rye flour, which it's too aggressive to say that it's blue, but it is a cool. It's almost like there's something just like slatey about the color.
They do smell different.
The two,
and they feel different. Yeah.
The two, it's funny. The two wheats actually is more like extremely fine sand, and this one is a little bit. Honestly, feels like the softest of all of them.
Yes,
the rye feels like the softest of all of them. I don't think people could hear you over the noise of the mill, but you just confessed to me.
Oh, well, I divide the world's population into either you love to cook or you love to bake, and I love to cook. I am friends with bakers. I admire bakers. Bakers of anything have, I think, a special personality and gift and traits that I don't possess.
Following directions.
To the T. It's as if I feel like I'm in prison when I'm baking. I'm like, really? No nuance here? Really? Just a touch more? Just a splash here? Just an adjustment there? How about this? What about that? And I feel like I want to tango around the kitchen, and I feel like baking puts me in a straight jacket of very particulars.
You have of course heard this before, that cooking is like art and baking is like chemistry. So
I have heard that, and yes, I fall on the side of cooking
of art. Yeah.
That brings me joy. Do I love eating baked goods? 100%.
Yeah.
Do I love to participate in it? I don't love to make it.
But you make a pancake.
I do.
Does that feel different to you?
It does. Mm-hmm. It does feel a lot different. And you know what? I'm bad at making pancakes. I'm real bad at making pancakes. Oh my gosh. I find it to be so challenging to. Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not good at it.
I can't think of a context in which
my
you would make
5-year-old
me a
can
pancake.
tolerate the pancake inconsistency that is our everyday life. And it's just, it's a major challenge for me. Challenge extended.
So so in growing up, my mom was the total opposite. Was not so much into cooking. Loved baking and baked cookies multiple times a week, and had, and they were just like her regular repertoire of like cookies, brownies, and cakes that she baked. We never. Actually, my dad now bakes bread, but it was mostly kind of a pastry baking household. So in growing up, that was like my. It's basically. Funny that I became a vegetable farmer. I grew up on, just like pizza and cake. It's like what my food memories
it made its way all the way through.
Yeah, I guess it was.
We're doing
I guess it was impactful because that's like literally what we do. But so I have such then. I've always felt like something was being baked in my kitchen when I was growing up.
Okay, well, cheers to these wheat berries and rye berries and flours that we milled today, and cheers to another successful wheat harvest. It is a big deal and a major accomplishment.
It feels so good.
Bravo.
Always feels good to get on the other side of the wheat harvest. We just have the oats that are left out in the field, which we didn't even celebrate or talk about today. And it's
different episode.
It's a whole different thing.
It's a whole different.
The oats
grass.
for us are the core of granola. And that actually is probably the grain that is most appreciated and shared and loved that comes through the kitchen is the granola. We do such a big granola volume. So I am hopeful that we will harvest the oats in the next several days. The thing that made the harvest so challenging this morning, what stopped us, is that we had a rainstorm, some wind a few days ago, and it knocked some of the crop down. Mm-hmm. And so typically you're going through and the grain is standing upright, and the cutter bar, you're just, it's like 6 or 8 inches below the head of the grain, and you're just smoothly running through the field. But so much of the crop fell that you have to have the cutter bar lower to try to pick it off the ground, and there's like other plant material down there on the ground, and you have to go slower, and the combine doesn't like it, and it's just a little bit. It's a little bit more of a jungle.
And we have another storm coming through on Thursday.
Yeah, so it's a little bit more complicated.
It is a delicate dance this time of year to strike the right timing on
the timing.
Harvest.
Yeah,
and I'm so grateful to you. Speaking of gratitude, that you taught all the apprentices about.
Oh yeah, I love doing that.
Harvesting and what it means to grow grain, because when you're an apprentice at a vegetable farm, you don't often have the opportunity to see what it's like to integrate small grains production into vegetable farming. It's a really critical teaching element and part of our apprenticeship program that makes us different and special and unique. And so I'm so grateful that's.
Thank you. It's such a fun. It's such a fun thing to teach. There's still a handful. I mean, we have such an extraordinary farm team that does a lot of the teaching, but grains are one of the things that I've still taken as one of the things that I teach. And when we're interviewing prospective apprentices which is, applications open in October, one of the things I hear constantly from almost every single applicant, when I say, why are you looking at Amber Waves in particular, or why did you choose us, almost everyone says, because you're vegetables but also grains, and I really want to learn more about grains. So I think in terms of grow, like aspiring growers, they are thinking about kind of the whole food shed, and so it's fun that we then get to actually teach them about it.